Hi everyone, welcome to another video in this AI-ready backend with Azure Cosmos DB, NoSQL, Python SDK, FastAPI, and Azure Functions. Today we are taking a look at error handling and exceptions and error messaging and things like that. We've covered data modeling, we've covered client configuration, we have covered, what else did we go through? Async operations, batch operations, and we've got another video today. All the resources will be linked in the description. The repository will be there as well. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. It's important for our APIs to provide consistent and clear error messaging and exception handling and logging and things like that, because the clearer and the more information we provide, the simpler it is to debug our apps. And of course, the easier it is for the consumers of our API to understand what's going on. So the approach we have is sort of multi-layered here. We'll start by talking first about these custom exception classes that we have here. Each one of these are going to map to an HTTP code. So for example, HTTP 500, application error, HTTP 404, products not found error, and we have a couple more here. And you might ask, why is this necessary? It's more of in a way to separate our business logic, because if you think about it, our CRUD layer thinks in business terms, not necessarily HTTP codes, or not necessarily knows what the API or the endpoint should be returning. So it helps us to kind of like separate that logic. Additionally, it's great for consistency because we can have other developers come and work on this API, and they just know to use these classes versus implementing some other custom functionality for providing error messages and things like that. And then we also have the option to sort of enrich these with context. So for example, status code, detail, and then just provide more information for debugging. So that's kind of like the first layer there. We also have this handle Cosmos error, which is pretty much going to translate the errors that we could get from the database, in this case, Cosmos DB, into status codes, and then raise the correct custom exception class, right? So for example, if it's an instance of Cosmos batch operation error, we've got a status code of 409, we want to raise this one. Or if we get a status code, let's take a look at right here, Cosmos HTTP response error, then we're going to raise database error. If we get a 404, product not found, and there are a couple of other things there. This is that translates database errors to business errors, and then those classes essentially translate those status codes to business errors as well. And we also have the handle batch operations error, and the unique aspect of error handling messaging with the batch operations is because these are transactional batch operations. If one item fails in the batch, then everything fails. But it is important for us to indicate to the consumer of the API, or to people who are working on our API, to understand which specific item it caused it to fail, right? So that's what we're doing here. We're obtaining the information with that error index as to which one is failing. And then we're going to go ahead and get that context and send it over to that translation layer, which is that handle Cosmos error, with the context of like, this is the item that caused the batch to fail. And we also have those register exception handlers, which allows us to centralize all the error handling for all of our FastAPI endpoints, instead of having to have all these, like, if it's this type of error, do this. We can just centralize it here, and then we'll take a look at how much cleaner our endpoints look like here. And yeah, you can pretty much see that we have this return JSON response here, and then this allows us to provide consistent HTTP codes to the consumers of our API as well. So if we take a look at, for example, let's go to product CRUD. We'll take a look at get product by ID. Perfect. Get product by ID. We try the operation, and if it creates some sort of exception, we first send to our logger. We are giving it an error retrieving product, and we're giving it some context here. And this is important because for debugging purposes, we can go to Azure Monitor or wherever it is that we're collecting our logs and figuring out what's going on. And additionally, we're giving sending off that context also to that translation layer handle Cosmos error as well too. So it's a lot cleaner for us. Like, this isn't a lot of like, if it's this type, do this. If it's that type, do that. Like, all that is being done in our exceptions.py layer. In our product CRUD batch, we can take a look at, for example, our create products, right? So what's going to happen here is we essentially try to execute those batch operations. If we have some sort of issue, we will make sure to provide the proper context. So we have here that handle batch operation error, which is in that exceptions.py. And we are sending it the exception itself that we were using the create operation. We have the category, which is the partition key, right, in the list of items. And then we also are sending it the get create error context, which essentially just provides the error, the information of the specific item that caused the error, SKU, and then product name here as well here. So that was essentially how all of our batch operations are going to handle that. If we take a look at our product route, actually it's got our function underscore app.py, which is a file that defines many different options that you can customize for your FastAPI. And in our case, I'm just registering the exception handler. So that means now if I go to my product route, you see that I don't have any code that is specific to error handling here because it is just part of the entire FastAPI app. And I don't have to add anything here. It makes it look very clean, very simple, and there's just less clutter of code here, which is pretty awesome functionality of FastAPI. So what does this actually look like in practice? So I have my API open here. I'm going to copy my function key, and you can of course deploy this. And it does use the function key as the key to authorize. So make sure you grab that. And then let's just get some products by category. I'm going to get the kitchenware products. I'll do that. I'm pretty sure I have some kitchenware products there. So we'll scroll down and we'll see I have 2 items here. So let's first try to create an item that already exists. So I'm going to copy this one, I'm going to scroll down here, and then we're going to go to add a new product. And then I'm going to paste this in here. And just to show you all, if I hit execute, we immediately get a validation error thanks to PyIdentic. And it tells us here that extra forbidden, meaning remember that we set that we don't want any extra fields possible. And it tells us what we shouldn't be providing there. In our case, that means we don't want these last 3 fields. So this does validate, but if we execute this, it tells us here, product with SKU, it tells us the SKU already exists, right? So that's a little bit of an example here of some error messaging. We can additionally let's try the batch one. So for example, let's copy this one once more, and then we'll try add products batch. We'll select this one. We'll try this one out. And then again, if we provide this here, we'll hit execute. Again, we'll get validation errors, right? Because we have fields that we shouldn't have here. And then I'm going to just erase those fields so we don't get validation errors. But I'm going to try to batch insert or create items that already exist. And let's see what it tells us here. Execute. And we should see a very similar error, product with SKU kit BT001 already exists. If I were to change this to, let's say, 1, 1, 1, something like that, and then I hit execute, now it should tell us here that product with SKU kit KN002 already exists, because this first one is not an issue because I changed the SKU, but the second one does exist, and we can't have 2 products with the same SKU, so we have those errors too. We can also try to get an item that does not exist. So I can get product, and I can just invent an ID and a category, and then I'm going to hit execute. And here it tells us product with ID that I just invented and category that I just invented does not exist or not found, right? And then in Azure, what does this look like? So these are error messages that I got before from error retrieving product, right? So following that same messaging, error retrieving product, which we are sending in the logger. So if I go to product route, And then I do the get product, get existing product, get product, which calls our get product by ID. And then we scroll down here. Error retrieving product is that message that we're sending here. We'll go ahead. I'm going to try to run this once more just because here we go. And that's our latest error or log on our latest error. Now you can start to see how having these custom exceptions, how making sure we're logging the proper context and providing the proper messaging for our errors is just going to make our APIs much more robust, resilient, and better to work with. All right, and that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to catch up on all the videos that we've released in this series. All the resources will be in the description, and let me know any questions that you've got in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.